Get out your Cliff Notes. Dr. Bob is here.
Next on AM 1480 WLEA, The Newsmaker Show. Here's Brian O'Neill.
Do political science majors have Cliff Notes?
Have Cliff Notes? Oh, absolutely, yes. But they don't need Cliff Notes when they take my classes.
Dr. Robert A. Heineman, Alfred University political science professor emeritus. Glad to have you with us.
My pleasure, as always, Brian.
Okay, let's get to the debate, starting out with bad night for Mike Bloomberg, or so they say.
Yes. Well, I think it was one of the more entertaining spectacles that I've seen in some time.
Did you like it when they ganged up on Bloomberg?
I don't know whether I liked it. I just thought it was entertaining as a dickens. I think a number of facts kind of stood out, I thought. One, his timing here and his strategy for the campaign to buy the nomination ran into a roadblock Wednesday that I think he did not anticipate. So for this to happen a few days before the first, not the first, but the Nevada caucuses, and then there's going to be another debate next week, just before the South Carolina primary, this is not going to help him at all, I think, in Nevada, nor if this continues in South Carolina. He'd been far better off just ignoring the debates and going into Super Tuesday with this sort of ambience that somehow he's unbeatable, he can spend as much money as he wants, and will be tough to beat. So, in any case, I think in terms of strategy, he ran into a real roadblock there, and something that he really didn't anticipate. I think one of the problems Bloomberg has, and here we're getting way off, I think, in terms of what's going on here, is that his attitude toward the people he's running against is that really there's not much to deal with, and it's just a matter of him getting out there and sort of imposing his will on the group, which didn't work out well at all last Wednesday night, because these guys have been, first of all, most of them are pretty bright, and second, they've been involved in debates for a long, long time, and they certainly know how to handle themselves by now in a debating mode. But basically, I thought what struck me about Bloomberg was how disingenuous he was. And that showed up, I think, in a number of respects, one of which was this whole thing about non-disclosure agreements which women had worked with him.
Ouch.
And he obviously, Elizabeth Warren came after him very strongly on that, and said basically, why don't you just allow the consent? He said, first of all, he uses the term, this was consensual. Now, that is not the term I think I would be using here, discussing non-disclosure sexual or harassment kinds of issues. But nonetheless, he used it. And Warren's point was, well, just remove the non-disclosure element and allow the women to speak up. And Bloomberg's response was, well, this is a consensual agreement here, and they've consented. I don't want to undermine their consent. Are you kidding me? I mean, how consensual is it when you're suing, bringing a case against a $50 billion employer and end up with some sort of agreement? Obviously, it seems to me there's a lot of weight on one side and not too much on the other. So I don't know if we'll ever know why he got these non-disclosure agreements. Maybe we'll never know how many there were. Certainly there are people digging around right now trying to find out, I'm sure.
What about this Bloomberg memo?
What Bloomberg memo?
Well, this memo that the candidates referred to it apparently, and I have it pulled up here. from Axios.com.
No,
Bloomberg sent out a memo saying that if something doesn't stop Bernie Sanders, he's going to be the candidate. If Sanders moves past Super Tuesday with the 404 delegates lead that we currently project he's going to have, it's going to be all but possible to stop Sanders from going for a plurality or majority of the pledged delegates and so on and so forth.
Right.
Others said that Bloomberg asked all the candidates to step aside for him, Mike Bloomberg. What do you make of all that?
Who asked him to step aside?
Bloomberg asked the other candidates to step aside
Oh,
so
you
that
think he did?
Bloomberg could, yeah.
Huh. No. Well, I think again the man's condescending attitude here toward the other candidates and their followers is the sort of thing that really hurts him quite a lot. And to talk to his disingenuousness here a little bit more, he hits Bernie with the idea that here you are attacking millionaires and you own 3 houses yourself. Now, the fact is that Bloomberg owns 10 or more,
Yeah.
and you can bet they're pretty nice-looking houses. Bernie has a house in D.C., a house in Vermont, and he's got a cabin somewhere. And, I mean, that's
No comparison.
no. But following up on that, then, is this whole effort to try to discuss is he going to release his income tax? And obviously, he's not too eager to do that either. And he comes up with the response, well, I just got in the race here. It's going to take time to put these together and get all these income tax figures put together. What do you mean you just got in the race? He's been planning to get in the race for at least 6 months and probably 8 months or more. And all of a sudden, well, gee, this is a last-minute thing. I can't get my income tax made available on this short notice. I mean, those sorts of things that people have to just kind of shake their heads. And
What about this? What about this whispering campaign that was pretty public on Thursday between Bloomberg and Sanders, both sides saying that the other has serious heart problems?
Yeah, well, that's going to come up. Yeah, I think that's something that they're going to try to play that pretty heavily. And obviously, I guess both of them have had stents inserted. Bloomberg claims his stents were some time ago, but obviously Bernie's is far more recent. I thought Bernie's response on that in the debate was very clear that he had released, I guess, a lot of his medical records. I don't know if he's released them all, but his response was, if you want to follow me around on a typical campaign day with 3 appearances and moving from place to place, see how you feel at the end of the day. So I thought he laid that in pretty well. But in any case, for either one of them, the question is how long are they going to last as president? And in Bernie's case in particular, whether he's had heart trouble or not, which obviously he has had, his age is such. What is he now, 78 or 77? One of the two.
I think 78.
Obviously, you're going to spend a lot of time concerned about who the vice presidential candidate is. And we don't know who that's going to be at this point, but obviously that's going to be a very important decision on the part of either himself or Bloomberg. And, it's possible somebody else will end up as a candidate. But right now, I think Bernie has some real momentum going here, and Bloomberg is going to have to figure out some way to undercut that. And at this point, I don't think the other candidates are particularly interested in undercutting Bernie much. I think they're really quite angry at Bloomberg, the idea that he can spend it. And I think the amount Wednesday night was, $500 million that he's already spent in the campaign, and obviously he's ready to spend a lot more. And that, to put it mildly, has to be kind of pretty irritating, I think, to the candidates and their workers and followers.
Mayor Pete,
Yes.
your thoughts on his debate performance to start with?
I didn't think it was particularly strong, no. No, again, I thought Klobuchar came on very strong and made some points that were, and she took on some, heavy hits in terms of her working as a attorney general and some of the cases she's had. But she handled them. I mean, she definitely handled them pretty clearly. I mean, you may agree with what she did or disagree, but certainly not afraid to step up there and answer. And the other thing with Klobuchar I thought that was kind of interesting was the whole contretemps over her failure to know who the name of the president of Mexico. Now, she claims she just had forgotten it or blocked on it. I'm not sure. I'm not sure she ever knew. But interesting in that respect was that Elizabeth Warren came right to her defense and said, hold it just a minute. Everybody slips a name once in a while. The issue here really is trade policy or what kind of relationship we have with Mexico, etc., not the name of somebody. And I thought Warren, was on target there. I mean, these debates, and do tend to deteriorate into trivial points of one sort or another.
Listening to clips of them all day on the radio on Thursday, I thought all I could think to myself in terms of the what do you want to say, the viciousness of the attacks. I guess I thought to myself, how much money does a president make, and all these graduation speeches? Is it worth it?
Yeah, well, you got to be ready to get in there and take some hits. Now, what's also interesting, I think, Brian, is that the audience for the debate was really quite large. I think over 33 million.
Yes.
And again, here you get a huge audience, and all of a sudden there's Bloomberg out there getting blasted away from a really large group of people sitting there watching this. And again, I don't think that did him much good at all. Oh.
It seems like, and somebody said this to me the other day, the longer Bloomberg stays in, the worse it gets for him.
It could be. It could be.
And also, he was the big hope for the Democrats to have a moneybags guy come in and run against the other moneybags guy, but that doesn't seem to be working out, Dr. Heineman.
Well, Bloomberg has said that even if he doesn't get the nomination, he'll pour money in behind whoever does. But I don't see him pouring a whole lot of money in behind Bernie Sanders.
Or some of these others after they got done roasting him.
Yeah. So we'll just have to wait to see how that plays out. I mean, obviously there are a lot of twists and turns left in this campaign, and we still have our own governor standing at the side here, I'm sure ready to step in and help out if he's asked.
You ready to move on to Roger Stone?
Well, sure, we can talk about Roger Stone.
Okay, he's been given 40 months. The word is that Trump is going to pardon him and sometime soon. What do you make of that sentence, and what do you make of Trump pardoning him if he does?
Well, first, obviously, the sentence is a lot lighter than they originally started out with in terms of their recommendations. And I agree with Trump. I mean, the Blago thing, which happened earlier this week, and I'm saying Blago, I don't because I can't pronounce the guy's full name, but the former governor of Illinois, who ended up with, what did he end up with, a 14-year sentence or maybe longer? I'm not sure.
I think it was longer than that.
But at any rate, Trump is right. I mean, that for what he did, and I'm not certain what he did, actually. He may not have done much more than a lot of other governors have done. Certainly no money changed hands or any of that sort. For example, years ago, Otto Kerner was governor of Illinois and was really highly thought of. And in fact, I think was a very good man in many ways. But he actually, I think he took bribes for a racetrack or something they were trying to set up. I think he got 10 years. But I think he actually took money. Blago didn't get around to taking any money if he ever would have. So what he served 8 years, right? I think. And Trump's view is that's enough. Come on, what are you doing here? Well, I guess you got something of the same with Roger Stone. Now, the thing with Roger Stone is there is a real question about the objectivity or the neutrality of one of the jurors, at least. And apparently there's some tweets or something coming out of the jury that indicate a pretty heavy bias against Roger Stone in the trial. And so where this is at this point, and I think it does give Trump an out, Roger Stone's attorneys were certainly going to appeal this based on that evidence. And the judge's view was we're not going to delay this sentencing any further. This is the sentence I'm going to hand down. If you want to go ahead and appeal and insist upon review of the objectivity of the jury, etc., you're free to go ahead and do that. So it's quite possible this thing would be overturned based on that aspect of the original trial. So there are a couple different ways this might go yet. But I do think Stone may end up spending some time, but I think Trump will pardon him, yes.
Tied to the whole Roger Stone case was Jerome Corsi, who actually used to go on the Newsmaker show here with Kevin.
I see.
And Jerome Corsi, on his Twitter page on Thursday, wrote that he wants Trump to pardon everybody who was indicted, convicted, or pleaded guilty in the Mueller investigation, including General Flynn, Paul Manafort, George Papadopoulos, Michael Cohen, and Rick Gates. What do you make of that request from Jerome Corsi to President Trump?
Well, I don't know how a number of those people were involved, but Manafort is serving time right now and got a pretty hefty sentence, if I'm not mistaken. So in the case of Manafort, he's already served a year or more, I think, and maybe more. So Trump could, step in and lighten things up for him a little bit. There was another name. General Flynn. I'm not certain is he serving already in prison. I'm not sure.
I don't think so.
That may still be under appeal there too. I don't know. Again. Another way of looking at this, and again we'd have to go back at the procedures involved here, but any Republican charged in D.C. before a jury or a grand jury is going to be in trouble. The idea of getting off in any of those situations with a D.C. jury or grand jury, it just rarely happens if you're a Republican, and you can see that again and again and again. So I don't know where the feds brought these charges, but if it was in D.C. and you're clearly attached to President Trump, your chances of getting a unbiased jury, etc., I think are pretty slim. So that's another aspect of it. I don't know if Trump's going to play that much or not, but he certainly must be aware of it.
What about Trump's new appointment to run the intelligence community there, that Richard Grenell there, who was the apparently ambassador to Germany?
Yeah, I guess Trump's pretty satisfied with him. He's been a loyal Trump supporter, and that's what Trump's looking for there. But other than that, I don't know anything about it, although I believe he is.
They say he has a lack of experience in the intelligence world.
Yeah, I wouldn't doubt that. Yeah.
Is that uncommon, though? I think a lot of those guys come out of the big business world over the decades.
Well, in the intelligence area, I think you do get a lot of, not only so much big business, but you get a lot of attorneys and people of that sort. And you get guys like John Bolton who are just hanging around looking for something to do. And again, that's one of the problems with this whole Beltway culture. It's teeming with these people just hanging around both on the Democrat and Republican side, waiting for a chance to get some appointment here or there. And it might be a good idea to kind of thin that out and get out into the rest of the country a little bit. So I don't know. I think the guy's gay. I'm not sure. Did you see anything on that?
Yes, actually I did. He is.
Yeah, and not that I care one way or another. Don't get me wrong, but notice as far as I can tell, they're not making a big thing of that one way or another.
Well, with what Mayor Pete is saying these days about Trump and Rush Limbaugh being against him on that reason, you wonder if maybe there was a little political consideration there.
Sings out a little bit, whatever. But what we're looking for here are people who are pretty solid and capable people. And to go back to the debates and Mayor Bloomberg, or Mr. Bloomberg there a little bit, that's one aspect of this whole stop and frisk, I think, that I find really running contrary to the whole idea of fair process, because we have quotes of Bloomberg saying, if they're black or Hispanic or whatever, basically go after them. And I got nothing against stop and frisk, but the whole idea of stop and frisk is that the police officer has some reasonable basis or some reasonable cause to stop and frisk. And being black or Hispanic is not a reasonable cause to stop somebody and start frisking them. But unfortunately, that happens a lot. And Bloomberg was clearly reinforcing that attitude.
And it was on the wrong side of it.
And that's what I'm saying. Yes, absolutely. So I encourage the cops to get out there and do what they think has to be done out there on the streets. But to just back black folks up against a wall and that sort of thing because they happen to be black, that's very, very, I think that doesn't contribute a heck of a lot.
So before we go, who do you think is going to be the candidate come November of this year?
I have no idea.
For the Democrats,
I have no idea. I can go with Trump. I think we could put some money on Trump. I think he'll be moving along. And you'll notice that Trump is now, the night of the debates, and of course there is no Republican primary. They dropped the Republican primary in South Carolina. So it's just, but to offset the publicity that the debates get, Trump holds his own events at the same time or right close by. So you get a lot of, and which is, that has some, I think, media value. There's no two ways about it.
This has been an entire 20 minutes of media value, Doc.
Well, I don't know. The Donald should be listening then, shouldn't he?
I can't thank you enough for stopping by.
Quite all right. Thank you.